from being one of the greatest cyclists of his time to losing all of his glory to doping scandals. This is where Lance Armstrong really ranks in today's standings. Starting with the potential he showed ever since he was a kid. Lance Armstrong was one of those sporty kids who seemed to excel at everything from a young age. He was great at both swimming and cycling, and he even competed in triathlons and swimming competitions as a teenager. On top of that, just before he graduated high school, the U.S. Cycling Federation's junior national team had already set their eyes on him. They immediately scouted him out, and the guy got the chance to represent his country at the Junior World Championships in Moscow. Pretty impressive, right? In 1990, he went on to win the U.S. Amateur Championships, and only 2 years later, Armstrong went pro and joined the Motorola team. But guess what? Only a year after that, in 1993, he became the second youngest man ever to win in world road racing. The guy was ready to rock the cycling world, but it didn't take long for him to start facing some ups and downs, specifically in the Tour de France, the world's most difficult race. From 1993 and 1996, he managed to win a few stages of the race. But he also had some tough breaks and ended up pulling out of 3 of the 4 tours he attempted. Sometimes things just don't go according to plan, you know? But that was just the beginning of Armstrong's troubles. Little did he know he was about to face a whole new set of challenges that would push him to his limits. After the 1996 Tour de France, Armstrong had a rough time. He got hit with a serious curveball when he was diagnosed with testicular cancer that had spread all the way to his lungs and brain. The cancer had a very high chance of being fatal for him, but this guy was a fighter. He immediately went through chemo and surgery, since those were his best shots at surviving. And then months and months of treatments, everyone wondered if he could ever make a comeback. I mean, cycling's already crazy tough, and now he had to deal with all this. But in June 1998, he showed the world he wasn't done yet. He recovered from his illness and entered the cycling scene once again, this time with a newfound drive. He entered and won the Tour of Luxembourg, his first big race since having the cancer bomb dropped on him. Talk about making a big comeback. Before all of this, though, Armstrong was more of a one-day race specialist. But then he decided to switch things up. In 1999, he joined the U.S. Postal Service team and took on the Tour de France. And this time, he won. With this victory, Lance became the second American to win the Tour de France. It was a huge deal, especially since he was riding for an American team. That victory had fans and haters going crazy. Armstrong used that as motivation and took on the Tour de France once again. In 2000, he won the title yet again, shutting up all the haters and proving that he deserved that first victory. The guy was on a roll, and he didn't plan to stop. He went on to win it in 2001 and 2002, relying on his killer skills in the mountain climbs. And in 2003, despite crashes and illness trying to mess with him, he snatched his 5th consecutive Tour de France win, matching Miguel Indurain's record. But Armstrong wasn't done yet. He had his sights set on making history. In 2004, he blew past Indurain's record and claimed his 6th consecutive win. Talk about a record breaker. The guy was unstoppable. But after his 7th consecutive win in 2005, the cyclist decided to retire. Can't blame him after all that hard work and success. Except for the fact that he pulled a big surprise and came back in 2008, some thought he was crazy. But it was obvious he still had some fire left in him. He finished 3rd in the 2009 Tour de France, which isn't too bad for a comeback. But all good things must come to an end. Armstrong finally hung up his helmet for good in 2011, saying goodbye to competitive racing for good this time. His journey from cancer survivor to legendary cyclist was one for the books, until he lost it all to doping scandals. Armstrong's career wasn't really a smooth ride. In fact, it got pretty messy even after it was over. You see, there were constant rumors and whispers about him using performance-enhancing drugs to gain an edge in those tough cycling competitions. And guess what? Those rumors turned into serious allegations against him. In 2012, the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, also known as the USADA, dropped a bombshell on the guy, accusing him of being a big-time cheater. They claimed that he was involved in a massive doping scheme that spanned his entire career. Of course, Lance fought back as much as he could. He denied the allegations over and over, letting everyone know that he was innocent. But the truth had to come out one way or another. In 2013, he finally gave up and admitted to using banned substances during his cycling career. This came as a big blow to longtime fans and major personalities in the pro cycling world. And because of this entire thing, he faced some serious charges. The USADA stripped him of all his Tour de France titles, and he was hit with a lifetime ban from professional cycling. But Lance's titles weren't passed on to anyone else after they were stripped. Obviously, the cycling fandom was in complete shock, and Armstrong's reputation took a major hit. It was a huge fall from grace for a guy who was once considered a hero. But this wasn't the end of his troubles, because after that, the lawsuits came pouring in. Armstrong had to pay out some large settlements. We're talking up to $5 million in damages. And his bank account took quite a hit. He even got into legal battles with former teammates and sponsors who felt betrayed by his actions. It was a messy legal circus in the cycling world. Luckily, there are new talents coming in who have shown massive potential in beating his records. Take Tadej Pogačar, for example. This dude is only 24 years old, but he's already made a name for himself. In 2020, he came out of nowhere and snatched the Tour de France title. Talk about making an entrance. And he didn't stop there. He went ahead and won it again in 2021. Now that's some serious talent and determination right there. Compared to Lance, Pogačar's career is still in the early stages. But man, he's got potential written all over him. He's been dominating the cycling scene in recent years, and you just can't deny that. Armstrong's got those 7 Tour de France victories under his belt, but we all know they're kinda tainted by the doping controversies. Pogačar, on the other hand, is all about legit success and playing by the rules. And then we have Chris Froome, the British cycling legend. This guy had quite the career, racking up 4 Tour de France wins. Yeah, you heard that right, not just 1 or 2, but 4. He took home the yellow jersey in 2013, 2015, 2016, and 2017. But Froome wasn't just lucky, though. The dude had some serious climbing skills. I'm talking about those mountain stages where he'd pedal his way up those crazy steep slopes like it was no big deal. And then let's not forget about his team. They had his back, supporting him all the way to those glorious victories. So Froome's achievements definitely rival Armstrong's when it comes to multiple Tour de France wins. But what sets him apart is his clean record and the fact that he's managed to steer clear of any scandals. You gotta respect that. In other words, while Armstrong was a big deal back in the day, his achievements are now permanently tainted. This puts his overall rank up for major debate. Before his doping scandals were exposed to the world, leading to his complete ban from the sport, Armstrong was widely thought of as one of the most dominant and successful cyclists of his era. So, where does Armstrong rank now? Well, it's a bit complicated. Officially, his wins are wiped off the records, so you won't see his name in the rankings. He's kind of become a taboo subject in the community. People tend to focus more on the clean up-and-coming cyclists who are making a name for themselves without all the controversy, like Tadej Pogačar, Egan Bernal, and others. Now, Armstrong's legacy's a mixed bag. On one hand, he was a force to be reckoned with in his time, beating cancer and the Tour de France. But on the other hand, the doping scandal has stained his reputation and cast doubts on his achievements. He's currently ranked 16th as the best cyclist of all time. And his achievements are no joke despite the allegations. So, even though his name is no longer clean in the next cyclist records, he still was quite the competitor in his time. But the new talents are definitely not far behind in living up to his wins in a legit way. So let's see what they have in store for us. And there you have it, from losing all of his glory to doping scandals, to being one the greatest cyclists of his time. This was what Lance Armstrong's rankings in today's standings look like.